Hello and welcome to the van build vlog. You find me rather unhappy, and I'm unhappy with the standard of the floor pieces that I cut out, which you may have seen in the last vlog. Let me show you why. First of all, there is this gap between these boards. Yes, it's only a couple of millimeters. Yes, I could fill it with wood filler and it's going to be covered with lino, but I don't like it. And the gap is even worse at this end of the van, the front, where it meets the front piece. And what's more, when you get down to here, ooh, look at that. That's deeply unpleasant. But the thing that really annoys me is my own stupidity with the way I did the cutting. You see, when I took the old ply and used it as a template, instead of using the long cut edge of the new piece of ply for the long straight edge of the join, and also the join at the top, no. I held the wiggly end of the old template up against the straight edge and cut that out, leaving me then the long straight to also cut out with a jigsaw. So everything got cut with a jigsaw, so no wonder it's also wiggly. So I'm going to use the last version I did, the one I'm now sitting on, as a template again, but this time actually use the straight edges of the new plank of ply for the bits that need a big straight edge. Yeah, I know. Some thinking this time round. I can see this is going to be aggravating. I've lined it up and look, you can see I've got the long straight edge here, but this one, which should also be lining up, in fact has an overlap, even though the bottom one is the straight edge of the new plank. So I'm just going to have to cut it like that and finesse it. So it may not come out any better than the first one. We'll find out. The question now is whether that new bit will actually fit any better than the previous one. Well, it is better in some respects. This join is now significantly less, and I'm going to redo this piece as well anyway, because this piece is the bit that's wrong further up near the front. So that's a good start. I've also managed to correctly reshape this, which wasn't right on the original ply template that came with the van. Just that bit round the corner, it came off at a different angle, so that wraps round better now. And that perhaps explains why there was that discrepancy with the one I'd cut versus the new piece's straight edge, because it's now overlapping this front piece too far. But what's really odd is when you come back here, it's now too short, even though I left this piece bigger than the one that was in there. Now how weird is that? What I'm going to do though is take that new piece, because it's the biggest piece in the van. That is now the new default. That one stays, everything else is now going to be cut around that. Just having a think about that little gap at the far end and checking, and the corner of the new board is 90 degrees, so that is the correct edge, and it's this front piece that'll have to be slightly modified or recut. Now this piece fits very well at the back. That's very good, I like that template. Up here it needs to be a couple of centimetres longer and slightly wider that way. But also this corner never came out very well. There's a lot of gap there, so I'm going to have another go at that. Good news is this corner is slightly better, although I do need to trim a couple of millimetres off it. Also this bit is better, although again a couple of millimetres just off there. The bad news is that, being an utter insert your own word here, when I measured to lengthen this whole panel, I stupidly measured the extra length at the back door end instead of here. And whilst in length terms it doesn't matter, it does, because of course the whole thing is a cutout, so having the extra on the wrong end means you can't just shuffle it forwards. I am such a plonker. Okay, I have trimmed and refined and shaped, not this edge you're looking at now, that's the straight edge, but it does now lie flush against, nearly flush against, the main bit. It looks like quite a big gap there, but actually in the van that really doesn't look substantial. In as much as if I show it you from this angle, now you'd think that there's barely a smidge between those boards, isn't there? That's not bad, I'm pretty pleased with that. And I've also just taken a tiny bit off those edges there, so they now fit better. That is good. So the only really annoying bit still is this difference here, because I put that extra on the wrong end. Now oddly, when I added the extra it was about 2 centimetres, and it's come down to only less than 1 centimetre difference here. And I'm just beginning to wonder whether I either trim a little bit off this one so you wouldn't notice, bearing in mind again the whole floor is going to be covered in lino, so I may not even need to. What I do need to do is remake this front board. Slightly annoying because it's nearly right, but when we go over to that side again you can see there is a gigantic whopping gap between the two boards, so that does need sorting. Right, with regard to this front board, I've decided to cheat slightly, and I've cut it, as you can see there, with a little step in it to fit the unevenness of those boards. Now I'm still not going to use this front board, the one on your left here. I'm going to recut it because of the gap over the other side, but I'm cutting it like this just to use as a template really. I don't think that looks too shabby, but it is a bit of a cheat. Right, okay, I think this will do. Now bear in mind those little gaps you can see vertically are just because the panels aren't screwed down, so they should all be flat once they're down. And that's over there. It's okay. I'm reasonably happy with that. Now I can just get on with finishing sticking down the battens underneath and mucking about underneath this floor, because there's some way to go before I can actually screw this in. And I've just cut out these holes at the back. The one on the left is for the bolt that holds the spare wheel on underneath, and the one at the right, well, the little catch is where the door latches. What's actually underneath this plastic cover, held in with Torx screws, I have no idea, but the fact that it's conceivably something one might need to get to meant I thought it was worth keeping that bit, and that can just, you know, sit in there or something and then be taken out if needs be. I've had an odd couple of hours spare, so I'm using it to finish laying out all the battening in the base of the van, because no, I still haven't managed to do this yet. But there it is. So you've got the bed and storage is going over there, you've got some storage units across the back here, you've got the kitchen unit here, and then this is where you come in, and there's a little corridor here, and then right at the end there where you can see those extra little supports, that's where the battery bay is with the electrics compartment there. So I now just need to stick it down. Okay, on a lovely sunny day we have a little transformation. As I explained in a previous vlog, one of my early ones, I haven't got the headroom to put in lots of insulation on the floor. I just can't afford to lose those inches or I won't be able to sit in the van, so I'm just gambling and going with a simple radiant reflective barrier with an air gap. There is actually an air gap between the barrier and the battens. It's very small, but it's there, and I'm hoping that will give me some degree of radiation and the air gap will act as insulation. And I've just been using up the old remnants of the spray foam stuff to go around some of these edges and just seal it all up really. I'm trying to seal up everything underneath the floorboards so that this all becomes just a giant trapped pocket of air so far as I can. If you were allowing the air to all flow around, it wouldn't then have the same effect. But if I can seal off, effectively go around all the edges and seal it off so that all the air under the floorboard is trapped to a degree. I grant you it's not going to be ideal. It's not going to be completely airtight. But it should help to stop the air circulating and then act as a little bit of an insulating layer. Anyway, the upshot of all that is that having bought some screws, I can now screw the floor in place, which is very exciting. That one has not gone well at all. Not only did I cut a bit too much off, so you can see that bit of silver peeking out there, but weirdly when it's flat against the floor like that, you have this big gap there, so you can push it forward, but then it's leaning away from the floor there. And what's more, I haven't cut that very straight, so that when this end is on the floor, that end's got a gap, and yet this floor is flat. So I'm going to have to remake this wretched thing. Now on second thoughts, I've just realised that that silver bit will be hidden behind the main rear slat of the bed, sort of backstop of the bed will go along there somewhere, so that will be hidden. However, that doesn't avoid the problem of there being this whacking great gap under there, so I am going to have to redo it. Now that one is better. It's not pretty, I know, but it's going to be behind all the sink units, so you're not going to see it. I've just cut 1 centimetre off the bottom of that because it needed to be a little bit lower, and it's not an entirely straight line at the bottom there, but it's acceptable, I think. So yes, that one's probably okay, that side. I'm having a go at doing some preliminary carpeting onto some of the ply boards. I'd rather do it outside, but it's blowing an absolute hoolie outside, so this would be completely impractical with the spray glue. It would just go everywhere but where I want to spray it. Normally, the way I've seen people do this before is they not only glue the carpet on the front of the board, but then they wrap it round the back and perhaps staple it and things to make sure that it stays on. For reasons that will become apparent when I fit the boards, I can't do that. I've literally just got to glue it to the front and cut to the edge, and you will see why later. In case you're wondering why I had newspaper down, which seems stupid when you're spraying glue, it's because I was trying to protect the floor of the van, since I'm having to do it inside. But that may be pointless since the floor will be covered in vinyl at some point, but anyway. Having now let the glue set on the board, I shall now use an extremely sharp knife to just cut round the edges, and then that's that board done. If you think my method is madness, by the way, here's one I did earlier. It's not installed yet, it's just leaning up against the door. But that's how it looks in the end. Not too shabby, I think. And then there'll have to be separate carpeting up around the window once I've actually installed the window. And the two bits of carpet will just meet on this top edge.